good morning, everyone. It's 10 a.m., so we begin. We are going to have an excellent panel discussion, the title of which European Identity, Democratic Cohesion, and the Foundations of a Political Community. So I would like to stress three words from these: the identity, cohesion, and community. So these are really important things and ideas of how a European Union can be built or make it stronger. And we are going to focus mostly on culture and history, less to economic and institutional development. And what is even more interesting and even more better, that we have an excellent lineup of panelists, and it exactly reflects what iASK is all about, because we have participants from very many countries, which is, I think, that an Institute of Advanced Studies should be one of the focus areas. So we have friends from Hungary, we have friends from Czechia and Hungary, as one of our panelists is a fellow at our institution at the moment. Also, we have friends from Albania and also from Spain. So I'm very excited and I'm looking forward to hearing your opinion. So the format would look like that we are going to have short introductions. I would say 5-6 minute introductions for each participant. Then after that, I'm 100% certain that a lot of questions will emerge. And immediately after the introductions, you are free to ask. And I also have a lot of questions. So we would like to push this kind of dialogue rather than, just presentations, but rather discussion on all of these very important topics. But first of all, I would like to introduce our speakers here. I would like to begin with Lira, because she's the lady here. So we have, and you all know Elira Luli from Luaras University, Albania, and also she was a fellow at iASK, and also she's very much attached to this institution, which is a great thing, and it clearly reflects the strong cooperation between a Hungarian and an Albanian research institute. On the left side from Lira, there is Ignacio Jesus Serrano Contreras, University of Granada, Spain. We are very glad that you could make it. You have just arrived yesterday, as I learned. On the left side, there is Vladimir Georgievich, Police Academy of Czech Republic, Prague. I'm very excited. Maybe you're a policeman or what? Not a policeman, but I will reveal that later. Okay. So if you just... I ID all of you, of course. Yeah, but please just explain us what does this Police Academy means. Then we are going to have Bernát Török from Ludovika University of Public Service in Hungary, and he is the director of the research center there. And we also have our own Tomáš Korda, who is a philosopher, and at the same time currently is a fellow at iASK. And I would like to ask you first, Tamás, to make your introductory notes.
So thank you very much for being here. It's a great pleasure and opportunity. So to have a very short introduction, as said, my background is political philosophy, and the focus is on German classical philosophy. So it sounds quite difficult to, to convey these ideas from this tradition. But maybe to begin with, the founding father of this tradition is Immanuel Kant, and with this famous question about what are the conditions of possibility for knowledge. And to approach this topic of this panel, I use this phrase, condition of possibility, but not of knowledge, but of political community. And when we speak about European political community, I think it is safe to say that it is international community or multinational society. So what are the conditions of possibility to have something like international society? And I believe that somehow to subscribe basically to Kantian paradigm is a necessary step to do if we want to have something like international community. And the basic underlying idea is that what Kant was favor of in terms of political regime, maybe you can associate with him the term republic. And basically it doesn't mean in Anglo-Saxon world it is in opposition to monarchy, but the republic for him means basically constitutional order. In Hegel's term it would be Rechtsstaat. So and the founding cornerstone of this regime is a citizen. And this is new identity for individuals. Before that, there were no citizens, before, so to speak, before French Revolution. And this identity is critical to have something like international community. Because for Kant, the citizen is someone who can, before that, before French Revolution, the citizen was someone the lowest. You know, that the ruler was at the top, and you go from the top to down, and the lowest point of the state, there is a people, you know. But when the citizens' rights and duties were established and the constitution was declared, then the citizen at the same time the highest point of the state. That the state is not ruled simply from bottom up, but also from bottom up, not only from the top down. And the citizenship means that we can cross and bisect, so to speak, all possible borders, for example, I don't know, cultural borders, geographical borders. So citizens is a kind of identity that is related to universalism. And if we subscribe to this basic paradigm and basic political regime of republic, then something like international community is possible. So this would be, you asked me to be very short, so this would be, let's say, my philosophical, take to this issue. What is European political community, and what are the conditions of possibility for this, let's say, entity, if we call it like that. So maybe I pass the word to be short, and then we can discuss it further.
Okay, thank you very much. It's good to be here in this distinguished panel. I think it will be a very colorful conversation. Now we are taking a huge jump into a very different aspect, because I am a constitutional lawyer, and I am bringing about this aspect into the panel, and I think it's a very interesting perspective regarding the European identity issue. Identity is a very rich and multifaceted notion, and in Europe and in the European Union, the constitutional perspective is more and more interesting in the topic, I think. And more specifically, I will bring up a very concrete example how a European constitutional identity or very distinctive legal approach can emerge, and this is the example of regulating new technologies. A very concrete issue, but I think it is nowadays in the legislative process and the developments in the European Union, it is just one of the best examples that European constitutional identity exists. So if you see the legal documents and treaties of the European Union, in the first part I will keep my focus on the EU because of the legal documents. You cannot find the exact notion of constitutional identity, but it is clear, as you may know, some of you well know, that in Article 2 of the Treaty on the European Union lists values, and well-known values, the democracy, rule of law, respect, protection of human rights, and the key, the most important value of human dignity. And in the jurisprudence of the European Court of Justice, these values are the ground of a European constitutional identity. The court itself already uses this term, constitutional identity, and it is more and more important. It is not just a declaration. Back in time, it was a question whether or not this is just a declaration of some values. Now it is clear that it is not a declaration, only a declaration, because procedures can enforce these values in Article 2. So this is just the ground in the treaties, and as I mentioned, I would tell some words about the regulation of new technologies, not just because of the fact that this is my research field, but I find it interesting, especially from the perspective of constitutional or legal identity of Europe. If you see how the EU approaches new technologies, the social challenges raised by new technologies, including internet platforms and artificial intelligence, you will find a very specific and characteristic legal answer based on the values I just mentioned from Article 2 of the treaty. And you will not find the same answer to these challenges anywhere else in the global legal map. Neither in the Western constitutional culture and nor in other parts of the world. There are two pillars of this very distinctive, identical European answer. First is a special mix of values. I mentioned some of them, but the interesting thing is that human dignity, fundamental rights, democracy, you can find, of course, these values in other jurisdictions as well, but in the special mix that you can find in the regulation and legislative developments in the European Union, it is very special. Because, then this is the second pillar, European countries have in common a very specific constitutional doctrine how to protect these values. This is about the role of the state, how the state can be responsible to protect these values. In other constitutional culture, for example, in the US, the other important doctrine in Western constitutionalism, it is impossible to think about the state that has a responsibility to protect democracy, to protect human rights and fundamental rights. Here in Europe, it is important part of this constitutional identity that the state has this positive obligation to protect these values. The state has a positive obligation to enforce constitutional rights and human dignity against corporations, companies. It is very important in the information society context, because this is the very ground of how to regulate online platforms in Europe, a new phenomenon that we protect the fundamental rights of users, of citizens, against business companies and business interests. So this balance between fundamental rights and business interests, I think it's a very special point of this European approach and constitutional or legal identity. And at the end of the day, if you see the regulation of artificial intelligence, you will see a strong approach based on fundamental rights and limiting other business interests and the interests of corporations or business entities. Just one last remark, but because it is very nice, we have this GDPR, which is the Digital Services Act. We have now the AI Act, based on these values, legally trying to enforce these European values, human dignity. the problem is that we have this very nice and I think we should be proud of this European constitutional identity. But the question that is getting bigger and bigger is how to practically enforce these identity elements or values and rights, because we now in the Union we have these beautiful regulations with values against platforms, against big tech companies, against developers of AI. But what is missing, or at least there is a huge risk that with time passing we won't see the actual practical result of these very nice regulations, that what is missing is the economic background of this. It seems like, at least if you see the DSA, it is in effect since for years, and no practical outcome, no practical change in the practice of online platforms, how they moderate, how they react to user activities, and because the regulation is one thing, and how to enforce the regulation is depending on concrete, actual economic and other circumstances, social circumstances. So the big question to me, that as a constitutional lawyer dealing with these information society questions, it is clear that there is a European identity, a constitutional identity we should be proud of. I like it, I love it, and I think it is very important to keep it. But it is a huge challenge that, given the fact that we don't have leader AI companies globally speaking, or internet companies in the big tech era, in the big tech area, how to practically and actually enforce these rights when we are very vulnerable to the big actors of this information society. So, just as a starting point, or just first introduction.
Excellent, thank you very much. Can you hear me with? It's for them. Okay, I apologize. Sorry. So first of all, thank you. So to clear up the mystery on me, I'm not a police officer. I am affiliated and I work at the Department of Security Studies of the Police Academy of the Czech Republic. My own background is in political science, but most of my research is actually on security slash Europeanization of the Western Balkans, as I did my master, my PhD and studies, and as well as I attained my associate professorship at Masaryk University in Brno, where I still teach as a visiting lecturer. At the Police Academy of the Czech Republic, I do research in mostly, but not exclusively, in the security-related agenda or security-related topics, and also lead a few projects that are, let's say, mostly, though not exclusively, security related. Now, first of all, I'm very thankful for all the previous comments that we have had on this panel. Two, I think, completely different, perspectives. One very philosophical, so ideational perspective. The other more of a perspective of somebody who is a practitioner, or at least partly practitioner, or is partly dealing with practice. I am going to, if you allow me then, to have a presentation that I prepared. I mean, we can do it later if you obviously want me to do it on Serbian protests. Yeah, I can use it then later on. So I will be then discussing Serbian protests, or the issue of Serbian protests with respect to or Serbian student protests with respect to EU values. And I'm really glad that I see Professor Radlić here, whom I co-authored an article on a few months ago. Now, as far as I hope they can hear me. Yeah, okay, so you want me to start with the student protests? Okay, No problem at all. I actually had some other things. May I just say, have a few other says and then continue with this. So as far as the panel on, or the topic of this particular panel is concerned, European identity, EU values, generally the issue of these shared identities, I always like to, go back to this social constructivist point of view, because and I'm sure all of you know, or at least some of you know, who are at academia at least, that social constructivists, for this social constructivist perspective of social sciences, they emphasize, social constructivists emphasize the creativity basically of both individuals as groups. So in essence you have both individuals and groups as identity inventors. So the fact that you're able to invent your own identity. At the same time, constructivists do not see any sort of an identity as something that is set in stone, right? So something that is not liable to change over time. And in that particular respect, they always emphasize a certain number of socially constructed factors that obviously influence the change within one particular identity paradigm. And this is something that, for example, Cole in his research, he has done quite a lot on. He spoke of the so-called identity paradigm, emphasizing that it is very important for us to take into consideration the self-understanding of different social groups, meaning the way the different social groups understand their own identity. Particularly, this is and also very important for me with respect to the European identity that we consider, or that I consider to be our shared identity, because it is the identity that is supposed to somehow combine not only the ethnic identities that we are all, deeply involved with, whether we wanted it or not, but European identity as the one that is actually shared by all. So in many, or in recent years, particularly in the last perhaps 20 years, there has been quite a lot of political mobilization against European identity and against those political positions that actually advocate European Union values, European Union shared identities in this particular regard. And many of these populist platforms, they consider European identity as some sort of a threat to their own ethnic identities, instead of just being, in my opinion, some sort of a co-opt really to the ethnic identity issue as such. So in that particular regard, I think that what we will be basically dealing with, or what I would like to perhaps examine today, is what is the correlation. And in my opinion, there is a fairly strong correlation between democracy, or the quality of democracy, and the issue of the collective identity and the collective identity formation. So for me, if you want to have a much stronger European identity, you actually, have the fact that European identity, as any other identity, is an issue of ebb and flow, really. So up and down of change, of a certain, number of changes that that at one particular time may be seen in one or the other way. Speaking of the correlation between the quality of democracy and European values, you could see, for example, the case of Hungary, of this very country that we're in now, with respect to the Orban government finally leaving. So in that leaving, and you could see actually the insistence on European values in this particular regard. So for me, really, if you want to speak about the European values or shared European values, and therefore European identity, I think that the best way is definitely to enhance the quality of democracy that you live in, so that the people, or the peoples, or different ethnic groups that live in different countries can be able to reflect on it and actually share it. And I have seen it also with other countries, so not only with countries that have been members of the European Union for quite some time now, but also with countries or states in transition. And you can see it the best in the Balkans. We have some colleagues from Albania here. We have seen Albanian protests. Now many of them clinging again to the European values, or asking for European agendas, transparency, accountability. Very similar thing is also done or is happening in Serbia, but at one point there are also some nationalist discourses there, and so on and so forth. So this is something that I would like to discuss, today on this particular panel. So if you don't want me to present. Yeah, okay, cool, thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I am Ignacio Jesús Serrano Contreras from Spain. My point is, well, the first of all is I need to say thanks to the organizer for this very interesting summer school. It's my first time here, and I am really glad to be here because we can share different aspects about this topic, Europe, or especially from the perspective of academia, and especially here in this table we can share different position because I work mainly in political communication. Especially, I am developing different aspects, employ algorithms, and the main point of natural language processing or introducing the computing or social computing, the political science. So, but the main thing when I am employing this kind of methods is to develop more new or trying to understand better the theories, especially following the ideas of this panel, because I was marking different words like a framing in this analysis of this topic about identity, democratic cohesion, values, participation, social cohesion, role of culture, fragmentation, mobilization. This is one part of the main analysis of political science, but in the last mainly the last 2 decades, especially we are develop a new aspect of political polarization. So we started analyzing, obviously, 50 years ago, started with the political polarization about ideology, but now the main problem, I think is one part of this analysis, is we need to improve, we need to develop, we need to change the meanings of political polarization, because we are now in another sphere, we are now in another step. So we are using affective polarization, and this affective is mainly identity, is mainly emotions, is mainly fragmentation, is mainly marketing. So the idea about to relate with identity is especially in European Union. I think it's been created the moral identity, the moral community, and the question is we are closer to be more near to the idea about tribalism, because I think now the people with the introduce of these algorithms, but started obviously with the role of mass media, especially with the television, with this fragmentation, started to split the audience, start this division, and now to create or to find this public opinion is completely different if we analyze these outlets in different studies. So, but now with the social media and especially the internet, we are entering in a new scenario. So the question is, this new scenario break completely the classical ideas of identities, because now the people prefer the engagement, the people prefer the motion, the people prefer the tribal ideas than prefer to construct the position of democratic position. The people prefer the ideas to be in the right way of the history, or the right way on the meanings, of the right way on the thoughts. So about that point, we started analyzing that in social media, because the main thing is the life is not black or white. So, but if we are analyzing social media, just we can see black or white, because the people prefer to be in the right way. So, following that, the position about this point is now the European Union or the Europe, because when we are talking about European Union all the time, I think in Balkans countries, for example, but the main part of the Balkan countries don't belong to European Union. So to me, the right European Union is all countries, all moral identity community, but now with this evolution of this social media, these algorithms, we are now in another part of this challenge. And for that reason, I think the main point is to understand how is the public opinion is influencing the creating the new moral community for European Union, and we need to understand this is really important for the democracy, because the people prefer to be in the right way, in the right thing. So my main point about that is the affective polarization is one of the main problems to us, and we need to understand better the meaning of these affective procedures, these affective thoughts, and later we can create or we can renovate the ideas about identities, because now the identity is created mainly online, mainly with the social group online. So we need to be there, but we need to understand first the procedures of these psychological ideas, these meanings, these points about these really complex procedures, because 20 years ago, the main communication was very different to now. So we need to understand this procedure, introducing the artificial intelligence idea, algorithm, social media, and so on. And I think the first step to continue creating or to continue renovating the identity is to understand this affective polarization and how the social media and internet are influencing in these procedures.
Greeting to all of you. For those who don't know me, I'm Elira Luli from Albania, lecturer and researcher. I've been engaged at iASK for 3 years now. I came as a fellow and remain engaged with different activities and projects. I'm in the field of international relations, political science. I deal with Southeast Europe integration, European studies, transformational values and norms. But I also try to shift a bit from soft power issues to hard power issues. So, but mainly this is my field of research, public diplomacy, security issues, and EU integration. I try to focus today on culture, cultural diversity, and my presentation was about the missing links that exist today in Europe between institutional integration, political integration, and the emotional attachment that this European community has within European Union. Because as we have seen throughout these years, European integration advanced through laws, it advanced through markets, it advanced through these normative conditionality that countries in the Western Balkans, for example, in Southeast Europe should meet. But most of the time, for us that were outside the European Union seemed to us like a club of privileged countries, that sometimes our identity do not match their identity. But most of the time, this question was a bit confusing for us. It's about normative alignment and identity, or it's about cultural identity. Do they have something against our cultural identity as citizens of the Southeast Europe, considering our own traditions, our diversity of religions, considering our diversity of languages and so on. So it was also a debate when this EU integration project was launched at the Thessaloniki summit in 2003. Then scholars and analysts and experts started to argue within international platforms of dialogue and debates, if we have a European identity. And they were talking, they were referring to religion, they were referring to language, so they lost a bit the sense. And I think these debates in these countries, they were in Serbia, they were in Bosnia-Herzegovina, they were in Albania, were a bit misleading, because then they started to realize and understand we should really think what we offer to this cultural diversity that exists in Europe. So what do we have to offer? Okay, the normative dimension, we should do what we can in order to fulfill these criteria, these standards, these reforms. But on the issues of identity, we should really think how to build a strategy and publicize our traditions and our values that we are very much attached as societies. So for me, the main question now, and I think Europe did not understood it very well, because it was really fixed on this normative project and normative power of transformation, but it really didn't understood these societies. So this cultural diversity that exists also in sub-regions, not only in this club of EU member states. So to me, the central question of my presentation is, can Europe transform its rich cultural diversity into a stronger sense of community? Because we already have a European political community, but we needed to discover it only when the war in Ukraine started. So that's the point when we thought, okay, we should think at the pan-European level, how to connect these people, how to really increase the shared threat perception, so what is coming ahead of us, how to build collective action, how to build solidarity. But before the war in Ukraine, I think nobody thought about that. It was only about normative conditions and law alignments and institutional reforms, good governance, and all these things, which are really imperative, their benefits to the societies. Of course, we should meet them. But at the same time, we should understand how to build this critical cultural infrastructure to make people feel more united, to build bridges of understanding, to build consent, so that we know each other better in this regard. Because since these geopolitical shifts, these geopolitical turmoils, conflicts, and the war in Ukraine started and everything, I think we were a bit, we were feeling like we were somehow not only delaying, but sometimes also excluded from this club of EU member states. And that's how I understand now that the concept, because it was also a question here, EU or Europe? Okay, we know it's European Union, it's an institutional entity, it's a joint political system. We would like to be members of the European Union, but at the same time, we should also think that Europe, it's greater, it's broader than, it's a territorial space, it's a geographical space, that many cultures, many societies are part of this geographical space, and that's, I think, the missing link in this regard. So how to build this community, not only based on normative dimensions, but also how to complement with cultural dialogue, and how to exploit this cultural diversity on the benefits of the European political community.
Thanks for this very rich and multifaceted perspectives on European identity and the related issues. And now I'm turning to the audience for a first very quick round of questions, if you have anything to ask or comment what we have just heard. Especially I'm turning to our students here.
Yeah, thank you very much. So first of all, I want to clarify that I'm not a federalist. However, we talk a lot about the EU needing more power and a faster decision-making to be a bigger player in the global politics. But can we actually achieve this kind of unity without a common European constitution? So in your view, is it possible to have a strong Europe as long as the Union is based on a complex system of treaties rather than one unified constitution? Thank you.
Maybe you want to.
very good question, a key question. It's been a nice development of forging this constitutional European identity, but there was a clear break in it when the European Constitution failed. And I think now we are getting closer to the maximum point where we can reach without a common constitution. We can do a lot of things without that, and if you see, I mentioned that was the reason I mentioned the jurisprudence of the European Court of Justice, because the court try to react to the missing constitution and to elaborate this constitutional identity based on the existing treaties. But especially, so legally speaking, the base we now have with the treaties could be enough to act, but the constitutional framework is and should be much more than just legal thing, especially when we are speaking about identity and cultural identity and political identity. In the longer run, I think we cannot reach a deep political and cultural identity without a constitution. It's just a fact. It's not a pro or con argument now, but it's just a fact. So a culturally deep common identity would need the notion of a European demos for the democracy. And without, I think we cannot say that we have a European demos without a constitution. I think that's the concrete point when I can grab this problem. The notion and the need of a demos for a common democracy.
Would anyone of you? It's not a legal question. I know. I just heard the word constitution.
If I may, I completely agree with this point, mostly because I think that any identity, for that matter, any shared identity, needs certain number of or amount of, or whatever you want to call it, institutions that are actually built within it, that allow it to continue to exist and to evolve. So in that particular regard, this is one of the institutions, maybe instruments. So this is perhaps one of the instruments in this particular direction of having a stronger European identity that transcends everything else, co-opts everything else, does not in any way try to diminish the value of anything on any other identity, but actually is able to work with it and to be based on that particular platform. But I know, for that matter, and I think all of us here know, all of us are very, I think, familiar with the fact that this particular project on building these sort of instruments or institutions will be politicized in all sorts of discourses, and has been politicized in the past and will continue to be politicized heavily in the future. So in that particular regard, I think this will be, this is this is definitely an uphill task, as you know, from my personal point of view.
Yes, it's extremely interesting. I don't want to be a long technical question or an information, but is missing. To Bernát, is there any new debate or consideration within EU circles, the Commission or the Parliament or whoever, about restarting the debate for a constitutionalization? Because just to inform our young fellows, all of the points are very valid, and it's very rich, and it's a Pandora's box to talk about how to create a transnational identity, how to help. Is it possible to push it, or is it just going to happen, or both? Now, when the EU has decided around the turn of the millennium century that there will be an Eastern enlargement, they were thinking about what to do with this, all this chaotic, I'm jokingly saying barbarians, you know, that Hannibal ante portas, all this Babel Tower, they're coming, all the Romanians and Hungarians. And there was several suggestions. And one was that we need a convent, a European convent, and it was Jürgen Habermas who was most clearly formulated the idea that the solution would be to create a all-European constitution which would offer the possibility to develop a constitutional patriotism. You know, that you don't have to bother with your language, history, and all kind of different things, but you are under the aegis of a European constitution. This is, I don't want to go, very typical, a bit dogmatic German philosophy, but very smart and very, how to say, very good idea, but it didn't work. Okay, it was a huge failure. I don't go into details. But now, what the question of 20 years or so, 25 years after, because the next enlargement, I guess, will be around 2032. Montenegro, Albania, who knows? Yeah, this is quite close. 25 years after this failure. So I'm asking from all of the panelists, what do you think? Would it be a useful idea to restart maybe from below, from academia, from universities, from civil society, how to create, how to constitute a political community? Now, this is Lira and myself and Dr. Henny, we produced a paper, it will be available for all of you, about the choice of Europe, where we suggest that there is a chance, in the case of the European political community, which is a discussion platform, more or less a cafe clutch, a little more than a cafe clutch. Each year, twice they come together in different. But is it, what factors can be positively developing or pushing this kind of gray zone born need for a European identity? Sorry, but the constitutional convents recalibration is a concrete question and idea.
Well, as you mentioned, Professor Ferenc, it failed. In 2005, they started the European Convent in order to discuss about this European Constitution, and it failed in 2005. I think it was not voted in France and then in Netherlands, because also Turkey was in that wave of enlargement in 2004, and they were terrified about an Islamic country and the numbers coming into the European Union. So, and then it followed the Lisbon Treaty. But I think it was not, and when you want to make a constitution or to make changes in the constitution, then you need to prepare the societies for that. I mean, always changes in the constitution come when there are revolutions, where are big changes in societies and big demands, usually. The constitutions to change need a perfect timing, I mean, the right momentum to change. Maybe it was not the right momentum. It was not a preparation, it was, the citizens at that time were still distant to the European Union institutional complexity, and these how institutions work and how institutions function. So they had not such an understanding about the European Union as a political, cultural, and social unity at that time. So maybe now Europe understood that. So European Union understood that. They drafted this European Cultural Compass. But there is not such a discussion, a debate, or a dialogue. What should we do with this document? What kind of initiatives? What kind of strategies? What kind of projects? So in order to really think how to connect these societies in this European Cultural Compact that was published in, I think, some months ago from the European Commission. So for me, this is really a difficult question to answer. I'm not sure if we are going to have another constitution, but I think it's lots of space and lots of opportunity to work with European political community, but also a European cultural community that can complement. I mean, these kind of aspects can complement one another. There is a lot to do in that regard, but discussion should start on that aspect.
Yeah, just does it work? Yeah, I would just pick up the word timing you mentioned because, as you know, I come from the Czech Republic nowadays, but it was Czechoslovakia that was established after the crisis, in the timing after the First War. Yugoslavia, transnational, was precisely established at proper timing after the Second World War, and all the history shows that, don't play a game with nationalism, because it can backfire quite easily. And after this, the reason for the federation, the time when the original reason for established kind of federation disappeared and the history moved forward, then nationalism backfires and it ended up not well, and the nationalistic or the populist backlash that we face today, rather I would suggest we should work with what we have and not to jump in this normative, to move forward kind of constitution, rather try
to... We need to prepare the societies with these ideas, actually. Us have a duty on that, a task on that, at the horizontal level, but I think educational institutions have a task on that. We as intellectual, with our research, with our opinions and ideas, and I think in these kind of institutions, these ideas can be forged. So we really need to bring this importance to do something in that regard. Huh? Yeah. Because I don't hear these kind of debates, these discussions, these dialogues at the top level. We have a European cultural compass. What should we do with that? Huh? So.
You wanted to add something?
Yeah, no, I think the main point, following my colleague, because I completely agree with her, I think the main idea is the moral identity. It's the first step to restart the European identity, because I think now we are living in a new scenario where the moral is different for different countries, if compared with 20 years ago about the constitution, or even 30 years ago. And if compared, for example, with China, all people in China sharing the same moral identity. So for that, it's really important if we want to create a new identity, new way to understand why we are European. So I think this is the first step, the moral. We need to share again, all population, all demos, this moral, and later we can start to speak about constitution, laws, government, so everything we want. But I think first we need to restart this community, but the community is not only for European Union, it's for all people from Balkans, or people from Turkey as well, from Norway, from Switzerland, because even from Russia, because I think we can share this moral identity, and later we can extend these ideas to the rest of our ideas or our thoughts. So I think this is the first step, because in the last decade that was cricket.
I have some interesting data to show, if I may. It's just a short.
May I first?
Yes, please.
To Professor Bogardi, then come to you later.
Thank you very much. It's a very interesting debate, and I'm old enough to remember that how interesting was the 1990s, where there was a genuine interest in Western Europe, in Central Europe. People came and wanted to see what is this change is happening, and basically Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and other countries were floating into the European Union. Now, if I look today to the scene, I see a very you can say professional or more rigid regime. The original members of the club say you may join the club on our terms. So there is no, I don't sense a readiness in the Western European EU member states to acknowledge that by inviting new members, the European Union would automatically change, because these are new values, new beliefs, new aspirations are coming into it. I also miss that neither the missed opportunities of the 90s are scientifically touched upon. We could have had even Russia probably in the European Union then, and it was missed, and now we have an enemy instead of a member. And I can imagine that the Western Balkan countries, which are kept on a leash, if I may say very brutally, and now Ukraine would probably bypass them, what would be the consequence for their European dreams? And how would, I also miss that Ukraine, Turkey is a question which is now under the carpet, and no one talks about Brexit. Why did a Western European country, of which the values, democracy, etc., was so well fitting into the fold, left it? So there are a lot of things which had to be discussed and not even mentioned. I'm not blaming this panel because this is happening on every scale. And if I were an Albanian or a Serbian or a Montenegro, or from Montenegro or from Macedonia, I would be very frustrated to see what is happening with Ukraine. I am not saying it has no political reason to do that, but I mean, you understand what I mean. Okay.
If I may, I agree with partly with your comments, or with some of your comments to be exact. Yes, I completely agree that the EU enlargement has become, or has in recent years been not sort of, but mostly a technical exercise in terms of meeting certain deadlines and benchmarks and so on and so forth. But on the other hand, this is extremely, extremely hard for the Union also to be able to change in a meaningful way. Okay. Second of all, we also have to keep in mind that the Union, when it enlarges, it becomes not only bigger, but deeper as well, which brings into a number of, which brings into the question a number of countries that join and their own preferences. I would not like to, with all due respect to everyone, I would not like to single out Western Europe in this particular regard as the only one to blame for the nature of the EU enlargement, but also to look at other countries that play a role in or have played a role in this particular regard, or in the way that we look or that we approach, or that the EU and Brussels have approached the EU enlargement as well. So I think these are very important points to share or to think about. And then my last point touches upon the fact that the EU enlargement is not really that much, and I'm sorry to say that this is so, and I'm sorry that that we see it this way is not really about the EU values, but rather about meeting those benchmarks. So the fact that you are becoming an EU member does not actually grant you some sort of European identity per se. Otherwise, we would have had all these countries that have been in the EU for decades being more European than they really, than some other countries that are to join, and they have actually not. So in that particular regard, I think this is exactly, this sort of a problem. When you are enlarging the Union, you do not necessarily enlarge with a country that, with a population that believes in the EU values and therefore has a shared identity, but rather a country that wants, and we have already pointed out, that sees the European Union as some sort of an exclusive club that it wants to join, but whose values that does not need to actually share, for that matter. I'm sorry to say about that. You can see that also with Hungary under the Orban regime, and now after the Orban regime, and the whole backlash that the regime has actually suffered, and the fact that a lot of people started being Europeans or feeling proud to be Europeans again because they were following the European sort of a dream. So in my opinion, this is the way I see the situation, Thank you.
Elira, you wanted to share some research results. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm fine. So I read a report. According to the Spring 2025 Eurobarometer, European identification and trust in the EU have reached highest levels in decades. 3/4 of Europeans, 75%, identify themselves as European citizens, while 52% express trust in the EU, the highest level since 2007. And this is about, it's also related to threat perception. So about the risks they share and they face. So they need somehow to feel protected in this kind of umbrella together. So they know maybe because of collective action they can deal with these threats. I think it can be improved because it needs to be also complemented with other initiatives and projects. But most studies, for example, have found out that Europeans do not replace their national identity. And I think we should clarify this. It's not about replacing national identity. But it's whether European can develop a stronger sense of a shared belonging, of a shared awareness that complements national identities in this regard. For example, if you ask, I would like to ask you, how do you feel? Do you feel more Hungarian or do you feel more Europeans in this regard? So I'm really curious to know, what do you understand with Europeanness? Because if you ask an Italian, for example, he would say a shared European identity, we already had one 2,000 years ago. It was called Rome. If you ask an Hungarian, for example, they would say, no, I know more an important word, sovereignty. So it's important to forge this kind of feeling. So to start forging, shaping this kind of feeling. What do we understand through Europeanness? So I'm really curious to know from your perspective too.
Thank you, Rita.
To change the subject a little bit, I want to get into a practical matter. Professor Török, you were mentioning the value of values in terms of constitutional order. In the digital age, I would imagine there are going to be players and bad players who want to promote the values that you've spoken of in the digital age. And then there are going to be outliers. There are going to be players that don't want at all to promote those values, but instead promote the philosophy of making the quickest profit, etc. So how does one manage that? How does one manage that tension?
The question is about the challenge. I mentioned that we have the tools for that. I mean, a European state, the European Union and the European member state has the tool for that, to push back the bad players and if they don't want to promote the values, and if they push only in a bad way their business interests and their business model against the values. The good thing that we have the tool for that. I mean, it's a constitutional question. So, for example, in the United States, a state and the government, the administration doesn't have the tools for that. I mean, not through legislation, because the state does not have the positive obligation to promote those constitutional values. It's a question of constitutional doctrine. In Europe, we have, but the problem is that it is not just a constitutional question. We see in the regulations, in the Digital Services Act, in the AI Act, both, and already the GDPR back in time was all about this question, that the EU came in to push back and to regulate the bad actors in order to protect our values, democracy, our rights, the rights of the citizens, of the users. So we have this nice framework, but if the state doesn't have the actual power to act, to counteract, and to not just regulate, but to enforce the regulation against the bad players, then it is a nice thing to have the regulation, but with no actual outcome. And now I think we are in this situation. We have the framework. We could do something against the big tech bad players. to promote our constitutional values, to promote democracy against social media, because the social media, which is, okay, I don't want to demonize these bad players, because they have positive effects as well on democracy and other. But we have the framework, but I don't see the result, and I don't see that the European Commission, which has the competence to act on the ground of this regulation, could actually push back and could actually counteract against the business model what these actors are pushing so hard. So I just mentioned it in my introduction that we have the tools, we have the constitutional tools. It's not a question. It is a European specialty in this sense, but it is not enough. A state should have the actual power to do that. And now I don't see that European states have the actual power to act against the platforms. The states are vulnerable to those platforms because we don't have European platforms. For example, just one example, it's just in a nutshell.
But it's all compounded by the fact that there are actors outside of Europe.
Yes. Yes, but...
and then how does Europe react to the fact that its own values would be violated if you play ball with these other players?
I think it's partly, and in a big part, or in a reasonably big part, it's an economic question. If they want to be and to do business in the European market, on the European market, then they need to follow our regulation. But that's why I mentioned that it goes back to the economic power and the actual power of a state. And I think European states, at least in this context, in the context of big tech and digitalization, currently, I don't want to be very pessimistic, it can change, but currently what we see that European states don't have the capacity to act against companies outside. But the tools are there. It's not a legal question. We could regulate companies outside, and we did it with the GDPR, and it was working better 10 years ago with the GDPR, but now we are weakening. In this sense.
An enormous implication on economic competitiveness.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
The values are great, but
that's just
right.
That is the problem I brought up in the introduction. Yeah. It's
So
a huge question. It's a huge challenge. Yeah.
We should have had some economic input on this panel. I think I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but first
I just wanted to do the same, to link values and competitiveness and economic power, because practically speaking, we are at this point now, I think.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your presentations, especially Dr. Elira, and answer for you. I'm a Lithuanian. I'm European woman, but this time I live in Kőszeg, in Hungary. I very like Hungary languages, Hungary traditions, and this time I'm feeling Hungary.
Thank you. Student?
Thank you so much. I would like to first reflect to you and your question, and then I have a separate question as well for the panel. It is important to realize that I am from a very privileged background in the sense that I was born in the capital and I have intellectual parents. So for me, this whole European identity I have seen how Budapest developed. I have seen all the opportunities I have gained from those opportunities. So it's very important to consider this kind of bubble I'm in. For me, it is very important, a European identity, and I do think even though I have gained to appreciate my national identity more since I am in this public service university, I'm still considering myself almost as much as Hungarian as European, in sense. Yes, I think it's important to stay cautious and use like some kind of national leverage in European politics, but I believe when I went to the countryside to visit relatives, a lot of people have been lied for years about the European Union and what do they do about it, and they don't see all the possibilities that have been lost or just not well taken enough advantage of it. That's basically my opinion about it. And my question would be that shortly after the Hungarian election, Bulgaria had an election as well. And a lot of people were, or like a lot of headlines were about, oh my God, he might be the new Orban. And my question would be, because it is so, we are so diverse, and it's like the European Council gives guidance to the whole EU. Does this, well, put that shared identity into the back seat, or, well, I don't know how to phrase it quite correctly, but is this kind of also going forward and then backsliding, or going forward a few steps and going back, because in any point in time there could be a political change and we could well get certain.
Well, let me clarify your ideas, because I think it's okay to feel very much attached to this national identity. We all feel attached to our national identities. I mean, I wouldn't change it for another identity, never in the world, actually, my identity. The problem is, how do we understand European identity? As a citizenship with some rights and no obligation, no responsibility, no collective action, no solidarity? So that's the point of my discussion. Because I'm not really thinking to leave aside our national identities and feel more European. I mean, identity is multi-layered. It can be a net, it can be like feeling double identities, European, but also Hungarian, but also Italian, Spanish, Albanian, so it's okay. But I'm really talking about this moral community. So this feeling of solidarity, this feeling of shared responsibility, how we perceive threats, how we react to threats, not only within European Union, but also at the broader pan-European level. And for example, there was a time where there were some alarm bells in Europe. In 2019, a group of, I think, 30 European intellectuals, like, for example, Milan Kundera, Selman Rushdie, Orhan Pamuk, Jelinek, Alexievich, they all gathered to write they published a manifesto warning about the risk of disintegration of idea of Europe. When we talk about disintegration of idea of Europe, it's not about European Union getting disintegrated, but this continent falling apart into blocks, into sub-regions that do not communicate with one another. So this is the point, actually. And that was the point when these alarm bells started to ring in 2019, because they understood the risk of populism and nationalism trying to divide these societies. And I think it was successful for the European election then that followed in 2019 with 52% voters turnout. So I think quite frequently we need some actions in this regard to bring this kind of awareness in the European space, in our social foundations.
Yeah, just shortly to that problem, of shared many identities that we share, and the problem. Okay, there is a question. Okay, and my problem, or let's say, it is. I don't believe it is so that we are so constituted as a human being to have multiple identities that are just aggregated, just a bench of identities. One identity has to be the main identity on which the other identities are so anchored. So then the question whether the European identity can be, let's say, anchored to national identity then, or can substitute as a main identity. So every time the one identity has to be main identity. It is not that we are just... Why are you saying that? Why is that? Because, it's because there is problem of, let's say, kind of aggregate. That you just have the multiplicity. And the problem is that you need a structure that put all the identities together, and only one identity can do that. So it is not that you have like I don't know. It is like when you wash and dry your clothes. After washing, you need a line on which you put your clothes. So you need some kind of structure that unites all that identity. So it is not a kind of aggregate or kind of put things on the table. Yeah, but this is the problem. I think that the aggregate is basically coexistence. This coexistence has to be somehow more firm tied together than just an aggregate. Of course, it is a coexistence in a sense, but and we have a multiple identity, but the sense how they are tied together, how they are bound together. And the term aggregate is a very negative connotation. It is just a multiplicity there that is lying on the... Yeah, that's
a much practical way. We start from national identity to go to the European identity. It's not an aggregation. I start from the sense of being Albanian.
But it remains.
To my natural choice, I think I'm European. I belong to this territory. I belong to this cultural space, to this social space. Nobody can tell me that you are not European. So that's the sense. Nobody dare to tell me that you are not European. I mean, as a Southeast Europe, we have lost Europe and rediscovered because of the twists and turns in history, because of the occupation. We were under the Ottoman rule for 500 years, and some of us converted to Islam. I never felt Islam is my religion, for example, but it was because of the history that we made such kind of choices, Not that I'm against Islam. I'm Albanian. I really don't feel very attached to religion, for example. But just to give you an example for that, I'm Albanian, but at the same time, I'm European. I start from being Albanian, and then I go to... I have this feeling... I upgrade myself to be also a European.
I agree, but my question was, what is the first? What is the main identity?
Albanian. I'm Albanian,
okay, and then European. And,
yes, I'm human.
No, my maybe. Okay, yeah, just. Yeah.
No. My point. The truth is, I want to continue the topic about the social media. I think continue the idea with expose my colleague. I think we have two problems in Europe, not only in European Union. I think the first is we don't have ChatGPT, we don't have Google, we don't have Facebook, we don't have a lot of enterprise to fight with this evolution of the communication. We just have Mistral from France, and in Spain we are developing another one, a large language model. So this is the first problem to Europeans, because we can, for example, when we are analyzing DeepSeek from China, if you ask about something bad from Xi Jinping, you don't get an answer. So this is one part of our problem. But another problem, I think, is we cannot develop, or we cannot restart our identity in using social media, because I think is we are using social media to recreate, to restart our European identity. I think we are not in the right place, because we know it. The social media just trying to the engagement is just for negative emotions. So the identity cannot be negative. So we cannot use these top-down identities. I think the identity is more close to us. So the identity is, for example, in Spain, the dinner is around 10:30. So this is part of our identity. This is part of our day by day. So if you are using the social media to transform our identities, I think we are losing the match, because the social media prefer the negative emotions, and in the negative emotions we are more close again about the tribal position. So this is my point about that, because the main problem is we don't have ChatGPT, we don't have Claude, we don't have Grok, we don't have 20 years ago we don't have Google search. So this is a problem for us. And another point is we need to recreate, we need to restart, or we need to start again developing our identities in a bottom-up way. I think the social media is not the right place to create that, and I want to fight with this identity.
And we don't have Elon Musk, I would add. A brutal,
for lucky.
A brutal capitalist, you know.
I have a footnote to this interesting identity discourse. So I think that we see the identity problems in the wrong way. It's not a state of identity. The identity dynamics is the important for us. And because identity is not a monolith entity, it's a very complex, granular aggregation of different identity features or components. The question is always the change of identity markers and modules. And we have theoretic weapons to understand the changes within the identity complexes. Because if you take one identity complex, perhaps the religious one, you can find the identity community outside of the geographical borders of other community components. And it's not enough, but you can mark the identity components about their nature. Perhaps a religious identity component can be predatory. It's against others, we and others. And it can be open for others, and it's a horrific difference. A national identity component can be predatory against other nations, and can be open for others, finding a common point for other identity components. So it's extremely interesting to deal with these identity issues. And even European context, we can find the Europe-specific dynamics of this kind of identity mix. And it's an extremely interesting challenge to deal with.
Yep.
Absolutely essential discussion. I'm very sorry it's not because I'm frustrated by the debate. I'm very interested, but I have to leave now. I'm coming back soon. But it's absolutely true what our colleague Karvalic professor said, that it's a flaw. You cannot, even if you are a president of the strongest state or the smallest, or you can just declare that this is the hierarchy of it. Let people decide. And this is why I just suggest to take all of you to study what Lira was leading us. The Eurobarometer for years is a very interesting documentation. They are monitoring the changes of different nations, different member states, and also I think would-be member states, candidate states, changes in terms of their self-identification. There are a tiny little, I don't know now what is it, maybe 5 to 10 or 7% people in Europe believe that they are Europeans and only Europeans. Yeah? And there are a little larger percentage, maybe you can check, who says that first, maybe Italians or first we are Europeans and then Germans or Italians. And then the majority says that we are first Albanians, Hungarians, and it's changing. And it's changing for internal reasons, yeah, because people's interests are changing, their life perspectives, their aspirations, that people say, oh, I don't want Hungary to leave the EU. I want my children to study in Brussels, in Bruges, in Oxford, and in Sorbonne, and blah, blah. And then stop the present regime because they are endangering us to do this push out of Hungary from the EU. Yeah, so this is that the personal becomes political, the economic. Yeah, well, it's a very important factor. Before the big bang enlargement, we did not know what the European Commission and the European Community and European Union thinks about us. It was unclear, and they were also testing us for years. And it became clear for me only to the very, very last, at the very end, that for them it was rather an economic decision to create a single market which is bigger than what they had before. And then they had this ideology, Jacques Delors formulated it, that then the other things are coming later, you know, like cooperation and cross-border cooperation. It is going to happen naturally because this is the nature of European integration. And that was wrong. It was only Jacques Delors who criticized himself. It was wrong. So it is the question, the major question is it possible to create a transnational or supranational polity? The European experience is a kind of answer to this. It is possible. Can we do it? We don't know. Can we do it if we have more and more candidates? We don't know. But these are the internal considerations. Yeah? But there are now very serious external push factors. This is war. This is the collapse of the European order, collapse of undermining of European values, the threat of Putin's Russia. I don't think they are going to attack Europe, but this is every day suggested. Yeah, they're giving dates, and now the Germans took these dates. The German military establishment declared a couple of months ago, and again, that they know exactly that it will happen. I think in 2032, that Russia is going to attack NATO. And so living in this kind of undermined trend, that means that people and government and political parties, some of them are getting closer to the idea of let's unite. And that it's rewriting the old rules, these merit-based law enlargement rules. And there are considerations how to do it, how to rewrite them. And this is a new interesting political debate that Ursula von der Leyen and some others suggest that Ukraine first, because we need a strong army with a very capable army, capable of military inventions and, you know, going to win the war, possibly against Russia with the cheap drones, and they've completely rewritten the old thinking, the old military strategic thinking. But the Balkan countries can wait. But this creates internal and external conflicts. And this set of contradictory situations, conflicts inside and outside, are the essence of change. So it is very, very difficult, very, very paradoxical, but it's fun. If you want to be a researcher or if a politician, it's fun to think about complexities. I'm sorry to talk too much, but this is one of my favorite issues. So I promise that I'm going to come back to you. Sorry.
Just concerning the change and to be clear, you know, maybe we can answer, and there is a quite clear barometer, you know, different one. We can ask the question, when Ukraine is fighting against Russia, are they dying for Ukraine or for Europe? And this is how they, maybe it is mixed partially, but the point is, at the end, what is the identity, why they are dying for, what they are fighting for, what is the main collective
But they are
identity.
dying for Ukraine, but they want to be in Europe. I mean, to
but
be in
then
European Union.
Yeah,
So they feel also attached to this European identity. I mean,
That's
that's their natural choice.
And maybe that comes back to my...
It's a construction. I mean, national identity is a political, social, economic construction. But it doesn't mean that being European, it's not a identity based on construction. Political construction,
for example,
legal construction,
yeah.
social construction. I mean, this is the weakest part of European identity, the social construction. That's that's where we should concentrate, I think.
Okay. Then just last verse with this topic. Okay, let's. No, this comes back. You know, when at the very beginning I spoke about the repair. Maybe we can. You know, this mixture between you being Ukraine and fighting for Ukraine and they want to belong to Europe. Maybe what could be helpful, you know, to switch from the European Union to Western Union, because the Europe somehow attached to a geographical continent. But when we stick to the concept of the West, also it is also geographically, but let's say less attached to a geography, and it then helps that what they are fighting for, not for Europe, but for kind of ideas, for kind of values that are related to Europe, but the point is they are better to be understood as a Western, that certain concepts are related to it, individualism.
You don't belong here, go to Russia. What would they tell you? I mean, that's their idea. I mean, it's their, I mean...
Thank you so much. Definitely, I wanted to raise two more issues, so that's why I just said that. Let's move forward. The first relates to the young people. Some of you mentioned that during the elections in Hungary, Hungary returned to Europe due to the results, and partly it was the result of the young people who voted completely against the previous government. So they had an impact on something. Something similar is probably happening in Serbia, I think. So the young people are taking, you know, big role, and they start to be involved in political fight and things like that. So now I would like to ask your opinion about the role of the young people in the development of European identity or return to Europe or many similar issues. And I would like to combine this issue with another topic which I wanted to raise, and it relates to technology, most importantly to AI. And probably you as a political communicator, researchers, can give us some insight into this kind of interrelation between the young people and the use of AI and social media. So what do you think about that? And now I would like to ask all of your opinions. Maybe starting with Lira now from the reverse order. Oh, you have that.
About the role of the younger generation in raising demands, accountability towards their government. I think this is really important. We had the protest in 2018, and after that we thought the society was becoming apathetic and fell into this kind of inertia. So the younger generation was really becoming disengaged and also not interested in politics. And then you need somehow a trigger to see that the reaction is back again and it's strong. But it's important to really emphasize that they are fighting for democratic value. They are fighting for, they are fighting against corruption. They are fighting against these mechanisms of state capture. They are fighting for transparency, for the environmental issues, for protected areas. So this is really important to emphasize that in this regard, they want to see their country belong to the civilized family of countries because they are fighting for European values. These values are at the foundation of the normative framework, normative power of EU. So I think what is missing here is that European Union did not pay so much attention in this regard, how to involve civil society, how to involve youngsters in the Europeanization processes. It was more elite-driven. So in this sense, they are also trying to make European Union understand that we should get involved. We know what is happening in the country, and they also know what they want to achieve. I mean, they have elaborated demands. Yesterday, they came up with a list of requests. So it's evolving quite well and very creatively. So I'm optimistic about that. And we should have these kind of mobilizations because they are healthy for democracy.
Well, my point is completely different. Especially because I think it's really important to understand the context. The context, the cultural, the countries, the situation of these countries. For example, if we analyze Italy, Spain, especially I know better, Spain, the new generation are more conservative than the prior generation. So depend on the country. For example, now, not now, I think all younger generations want changes. So if in the government are a political party close to right wing, they want to be another completely different party. And if the party is close to the left wing, they want a right wing. So that is the main idea. For example, if compared with 15M or Occupy Wall Street, now is 1 decade ago, the new generation, the younger generation, wanted some change close to left wing. But now, if we can see Spain and Italy, the new generation are more conservative than the generation of them fathers. So it's depend on the country and depend on where is the power. If the power is in urban, well, I want another completely different to urban. Because I want revolution. I am young and I want to change my life. I want to change the situations. And I think depend on the country, depend on the context. And I think, following the idea about artificial intelligence, I don't want to use artificial intelligence because to me it's marketing, but I think now we are seeing the procedures are being more fast, more accelerated than 5 or 10 years ago. And this is important to share another point, but I think the main point is the younger generation want changes. And I think especially, for example, again, in Spain, we see some important difference, for example, between men and women. The men are more conservative than women, so than women. So it is another point because, again, I think depend a lot of things, and maybe now in 10 years we are talking about the younger generation are creating the new European Union, or they are creating the new I don't know, the new Roman Empire. But I think now my main point is new generations want change all the time.
Thank you for the question. Well, I'm going to try to argue a centrist sort of a position. I fully agree with the comments that Lira has brought up or produced, and at the same time I completely agree with your comments on the context. We can see that also with respect to not only Albanian protests at the moment, but also Serbian protests as well. You have seen quite a lot of civic activism with younger generations, but again, I mean, younger generations in terms of generations of those who already study universities or actually attend universities, and those who have recently done or graduated from their studies. Not so much perhaps the activism of those who are fairly young, if I may say so, or still not adults. So this is a very interesting point. So I think it's a point that relates to you. So that's why we need to actually know the context. But I fully agree with the fact, or with your point on young generations or wanting a change or trying for a change, or both of your points. I think it's very important. I don't think actually there is any democratic action, and I'm going to relate to all of your points without civic activism per se, because that's the whole point of democracy, is, you know, taking it into your own hands, if I may say so, or contributing something to it. And I think that younger generations will probably want to fight for it. The only thing that I'm actually worried about, and I'm going to relate to you, is a rather negative influence, in my opinion at least, of the systems of mass media information, particularly in recent years, the rise of these language models, or AI, as if some people refer to them, that in my opinion will have a negative impact. I teach at two different institutions, at a state university or a state school, which is the police academy, and I also teach at a public school, at public university, which is a Maastricht University. And then I am even at both of these schools, I argue, I'd like to believe are quite fine, both of them, or I have had the experience of the quality of students, particularly with respect to them not wanting to read, not wanting to educate themselves by actually reading, has considerably gone down in recent years. And I'm not really sure if you can have a democratic system with those who are not well informed on the very nature of how that particular system works and what that system requires in order to be working properly. So for me, this is actually the biggest problem when it comes to the future, to the young generations. People like to say that the world belongs to the young. I respectfully disagree, not because I'm 46, but just because I think that the world belongs to those who want that particular world to belong to, so those who want to aspire to it. And in my opinion, the future generations, young generations at this point will be probably meeting these sort of issues or problems in the future. These particular issues with the fact that they have been clinging on this online world, online space that gives them certain amount of information in a certain manner, in a certain way. They have a certain tendency to use certain AI models, for instance, and in that particular regard, I think this will be one of those obstacles or hurdles to the quality of democracy that you want to actually achieve. So yes, I see a lot of potential there with young generations, but at the same time, these obstacles, they need to be seriously taken into consideration. And I think all of you who have studied or who have actually worked at universities or who work at universities, you know what I'm actually talking about in particularly in recent years. So I don't think that the future, I don't want to argue that the future is fully bleak. I don't believe it is so, but I think it's a future that requires quite a lot of work from our side as well, or from my generation, or from our generations as well. That's it. Thank you.
Just very briefly, just to add some thoughts to what was said, because I liked all the comments of my peers in the panels, and I love the whole discussion. We were speaking about closely interrelated questions, this European identity and the question of a formal constitutional making process, very linked closely. So I just want to add one thing. I'm not a researcher of identities, so it is just a subjective opinion from the Hungarian experience. I see one interesting phenomenon among young people, and this phenomenon is related to the discussion about parallel identities. As I see in younger people, I mean among younger people, there is some difference that their Hungarian and European identities are not at all against one another, and I'm not saying that among older people these two are against, but as we could see it in political games, the two identities could be played against one another and could be triggered against one another. And as I see, younger people are not at all ready for buying this. So their Hungarian and European identity is so mixed, because based on social interactions, close interactions with others in Europe. It is just a feeling. I'm not saying that it is a general phenomenon. So overall, speaking about the European identity and even about the formal possible future of a formal new constitution, European constitution, I would say that two developments can raise the hope for new developments in this issue. The first one is younger generation, the slightly different approach to the European identity. And the other one, which is a different issue, I don't want to go deep in this, but what Elira mentioned, that the external pressures and risks that Europeans feel. I think that can be another motivation towards this, towards strengthening the European identity, or even to bringing back the possibility of a constitutional making process again, sometimes in the future, not today, not tomorrow.
Yes, I will be also very brief. It's not my topic, the young, but when I am confronted with this question, two things came to my mind. First, demography. So there are not many young people. So this is one point, and because of this decline. And second thing that came to my mind, because a lot of, in Czech Republic and also in Germany, many people were surprised how many young people under, let's say, 30s were in favor of, for example, in Germany, of AfD, who were quite strongly supported in the last parliamentary election 2024. And the same happened in Czech Republic, where there is a kind of ad hoc crazy party that was based on, that the European Union want to cancel petrol engines. So we created a party, Motoriste, which means engine party, so to speak, or not electric cars. And they also attracted a lot of young people. And so the young are, so with the young generation, maybe the split between two political extremes is going to be much more stronger, on the one hand left and on the one hand right. So they are not voting, I guess, to the, let's say, catch-up centric parties. But it is not, it is what can be expected from the young people, to be like on the extreme side. With the age, maybe come to be kind of in the middle. The famous Churchill jokes, with, when you are not, this joke that when you are in the 20s and you are not a communist, you have no heart, But with the age should come some kind of, to middle ground and yeah.
Excellent comments, questions, especially from the younger generation, because they were addressed.
Okay. All this panel, we talk about European identity, and as I can see, we couldn't find any answer what is this and how could be. Can you define for non-European identity? Because as I can see, if you want to create one identity, you need the other side. Also, in my opinion, it's create also some the hierarchical things to other side, because in my opinion it doesn't work for some geography. For some people it reminds some like colonial history for something, and for European identity it could be powerful whole territory, also how you see for other part of European, like how you can define for non-European identity instead of the European.
Let me clarify one thing. There is no superiority in identity. There is no identity that is better to another identity. I never touched upon that during my discussion. I think that people are related, beside their national identity, they are related to their regional identity, geographic identity. So that's the cover. And when I say it's multi-layered, it's about the nets identity, the umbrella identity. And through European Union, for example, we understand not only identity, but also the rights and benefits you can enjoy by being the members of the club in this regard. So I don't have anything to elaborate about non-European countries, because I think it's related to national identity, but also to the regional, territorial, geographical space that you belong as a country.
Other comments from your panelists from to that? Okay. Further question?
Thank you. I have a question in a topic that I think we cannot ignore when talking about European identity, and if any of you answer my question, I will be very happy. In some European countries, political parties often build parts of their political campaign on Eurosceptic narratives and criticism of certain EU institutions. And do you think that such narratives can weaken people's sense of European identity? If so, how can we fight against it, for example, through social media, or can strengthening trust in the certain European institutions help build the sense of the European youth's identity in the European aspect? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very interesting question. I mean, yes, in essence, and the results have shown, if Eurosceptic parties are able to deliver, then they are indeed able to exert certain amount of influence. Although in my opinion that influence is, or has, well, at least in recent years, has always been ebb and flow, really, up and down, you know, depending on, and we have seen that with several different elections in several different countries. Now, for me personally, if you really want to enhance, as I have already pointed out, and there was actually a project in 2011 that was a Horizon project in the Czech Republic called Reconstruct Europe, that was led by the Charles University. They showed the correlation, or very strong correlation between the quality of democracy, or how democracy actually works. In one particular country, and this shared feeling of Europeanness, or the sense of belonging to the European Union as such. And this is something which I can also share with my other, or that we can share with other people from other countries, in terms of the fact that if you really believe that Europeanness is about respecting democratic values, and this is something that we have all, agreed upon, then this is, for us, in essence, the platform that we can connect on. Okay, so for instance, last night I spent with our colleagues from Albania, and we connected on a couple of issues that were undemocratic in both, for example, Albania and Serbia, that I'm from, but I've not lived there, but I've done quite a lot of research on, and that is very anti-European, for that matter. But when we said anti-European, we meant anti-European in terms of spirit and in terms of standing against the European values. So for me, these Eurosceptic parties, if they're able to deliver, in most cases they are unable to deliver. We can see that now with the Czech Republic as well, and I think that their support, I don't think that in long term they are able to make that considerable damage. Obviously, some countries are perhaps, exception to that particular rule, but some of these countries, such as, for example, the United Kingdom, have already left the Union. So for them, this particular now question of belonging, the sense of belonging to the, to the Union, or having this shared European value, is not maybe that much of a concern in terms of their domestic politics as it is at this particular moment. So that's how I see the Eurosceptic parties or the Eurosceptic platforms or agendas. Thank you.
Okay, we have time for one more question. So who would be the last?
Yeah, okay, thank you so much. My name is Mila, I'm from Indonesia, and I'm studying here in Budapest. So it's very interesting because I have no really good knowledge about European before coming here. Just one thing that comes across my mind, that because I'm really interested in what Lira said regarding the risk and the threats perception. So my question is, what do you think, maybe to all the panelists, what would be the more sustainable way of keeping people together? Is it based on the threat-based or the risk-based, or based on the interest-based, like the more benefit, like economical profit or something like that, like the positive approach or the positive leverage or the negative leverage? Because after the risk, for example, it's disappear, what would be happen? You will just integrate, or it will be much more sustainable if you bring people together based on the positive approach rather than the negative one. Thank you.
I have just a short comment on that. As I said previously, now this kind of solidarity and this feeling of belonging to the European space, it's about these threat perceptions and dangers that they think that they are facing as a society. And maybe, as you mentioned, when this threat is no more there, what's the situation then? That's why I think every aspect is important. Political aspect, economic aspect, benefits, social aspects, cultural aspects. So they need to work together in a complementary way. So if we think only about threats, and yes, we need preparations on society perception about defense, security, what to invest there, and how to make society really ready to accept these kind of choices that we are making. Once the threat is not there, then how you are going to explain to your societies what you have done, and you have really taken considerable part of budget and invested in militarization, remilitarization, but then not in education and culture, for example, or social benefits and so on. So I think all of these aspects should work in a very complementary way.
Thank you so much, Lira. And now I would like all of you to have your final remarks to this panel.
Okay. I was so surprised with this question. Maybe I can. Maybe to be quick. Yeah, I think that. The problem of identity is a matter of how it relates to each other, different identities, and it's important, you are quite right that what happens afterwards when the threat disappears, what to do with what we have created. And the main tragic story could be that Russia collapses tomorrow. This is the main threat, and what we will do with all that rearmament. For example, Poles are quite okay that Germany rearmed quite strongly and is going to rearm, but what will they do when Russia suddenly disappears? Yeah. So therefore, I will stick to that. To enforce the culture and education, so there is no substitute to that. So this soft power.
I'm in a better position because I basically gave my summary in the previous round. So just to repeat it, we were talking about the hope of the strengthening of European identity and the European Constitution. I think two basic points are so important in this sense. The first one is the distinctive approach of younger generations. We just mentioned it and we talked about it, and the other one is external pressures and risks. And I think the European community will be answering to and answering these challenges in a even closer way and staying together. Hopefully, yeah. That's I mentioned the hope. That's the hope, and we will see.
I will be really short, so I would like to thank all of you, first of all of you who have come to join us today for the discussion, and all the panelists, and obviously Tamás, who was very kind and accepted the invitation to lead this particular panel, so thank you.
Well, I will be very, very brief. Say thanks, the first of all, but the main point is, about when I am finishing this panel is, I don't know what is European identity. So this is my real point, because we are talking about all the time the elephant, but
understand the elephant.
Okay. Where is the elephant? But this is the point, because we are speaking about cultural, economic, history, languages even, because the language is part of the culture. But I think the main point was a joke first, but I think the main point about our European identity is we are human, and we are the humanism position. This is our identity. The people think maybe we are, the European is speaking about humanism. Okay, but we started to write about humanism. So I think the first step is to recreate the ideas about humanism, and this is our identity. Obviously, we can share different positions about this humanism, but I think this is the main point, and we need to continue answering this question, which is what is European identity.
I would stop saying I, let's say we. So let's start from that.
Excellent final verse. So thank you so much for our panelists and for you guys for the activity.